Hey guys, this is April, and today we're going to talk about Baroque art. We're going to focus on the traits of this art period, basically what you can look for to figure out whether or not this is a Baroque artwork versus, say, a Rococo painting or a Renaissance painting. Before I dive into this subject, though, I want to give you guys some background information. One of the most important events happening during the Baroque art period is what we call the Counter-Reformation. So, this is essentially the Catholic Church going out of their way to bring back people that had left the church because of the Reformation, because of Martin Luther questioning the Catholic Church. So, what they decided to do to help with this process was encourage artists to create artworks that were very dramatic. They wanted to appeal to people's emotions and to rekindle their spirituality. One other thing that happens during the Baroque art period is we start to see much more work created for Protestants. And in general, this leads to genre paintings becoming very popular. A genre painting is essentially a work that is a scene of everyday life. And a lot of times these paintings have a moral undertone to them. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about these traits that we commonly see in Baroque artwork. One thing that I noticed about these traits is they have one goal in mind in particular. And I mentioned this before, but it is about creating drama. So a lot of these traits are aimed at making paintings more energetic, more exciting, more eye-catching to the viewer. One thing that you'll notice in a lot of Baroque artwork is the use of diagonal lines, especially implied diagonal lines in human figures. The reason you see the emphasis on this type of line versus vertical lines or horizontal lines is diagonal lines imply movement and action. Another trait that you'll notice in a lot of Baroque artwork is artists will choose the most exciting moment of the story. So, for example, here I have Bernini's David. His David is unique compared to Michelangelo's David or Donatello's David because it is depicting the event in which you have the most action within the story of David versus Goliath. This is not the moment before the fight. This is not the moment after the fight. This is the moment in which David is about to fling the stone into Goliath's skull. The pose that Bernini has used is full of energy as well. We have this twist in the upper part of the body, and then his legs, we have a diagonal line within them, once again expressing movement, expressing action. We also have a strong facial expression. David has this grimace in his face, which we didn't see in Donatello's or Michelangelo's sculptures. Their faces and their Davids are actually rather calm, in my opinion, compared to Bernini's. Pose and facial expression become crucial to Baroque artists. One thing that you'll see periodically in the artwork of this period is artists will sometimes use poses that are based off of those used in opera. A lot of the artwork has a very strong theatrical aspect to it. Probably the most obvious influence that theater has on art during this period is the use of light. Artists like Caravaggio loved to use tenebrism. Tenebrism is when you have an extremely high contrast of lights and darks. Essentially, you have a spotlight. It's very reminiscent of a theater stage. The last major trait I want to talk about that pops up in Baroque painting, but we didn't see so much in Renaissance artwork, is the way that artists actually painted. We begin to see artists being much more painterly. So essentially, when you come up close to these works, a lot of them you can actually see the individual brushstrokes. Before the Baroque art period, though, you would rarely see the artist's hand. There's probably a couple of reasons why we see this transition. One of the reasons why we see artists become more painterly in the Baroque is because of a man named Titian. Titian was a Renaissance artist, and he is really the first guy to use painterly techniques in his artwork. And not only that, he was massively popular. just as famous as Michelangelo, Leonardo, Donatello. It was very common during this time for artists to get inspiration from those that came before them. It was okay to try to copy someone's technique or to borrow a figure from somebody else's painting. There's a reason why we see a lot of very muscular figures in some of these Baroque paintings because they are inspired by Michelangelo. Another reason why artists probably implemented this type of painting style, which you can see each individual brushstroke, is once again it probably added to the drama. When you have a work that you can see every mark that the artist has made, it tends to have a sense of action. You can see the artist's process. So that could have potentially helped create drama within the artwork. So that's my tidbit for Baroque art today. If you have any questions, go ahead and jot them down in the comments. Hope you guys have a good one.